let's talk about one additional aspect of international monetary policy. It's known as the trilemma, or the impossible trinity. A country can have only two of these at a time: a fixed exchange rate, free international capital flows, or an independent monetary policy. Can't have all of them. And the reason why is if you have a fixed exchange rate, like whether you're in the European Monetary Union, so you're locked in with all the other countries in Europe at the euro, whether you're in a classical gold standard like the US and England in the 1790s, or whether you're in the Bretton Woods system in, let's say, the 1960s. You can't have independent monetary policy with that, because that means you can't print your own money. You can't just print money and add money to your economy. If you did, that would cause the need eventually to devalue your currency against other currencies, because your currency is going to lose value if you print too much of it. Right? So you can have either a fixed exchange rate or independent monetary policy. Okay? You can have independent monetary policy and free international flows of capital, but if you do that, you're going to have fluctuating demand and supply for your currency, so you won't be able to have a fixed exchange rate. If you have a fixed exchange rate, you can have free international flows of capital, so we can put these together. Then you can't have independent monetary policy, because if you allow capital to come in and out and you fix your exchange rate, well, then your monetary policy is going to be dependent on the monetary policy of the country you fixed your exchange rate with. Okay, so two of these are possible, but three are not. And countries that try to achieve all three are probably headed towards some kind of monetary crisis. Okay. It's often depicted in this form, this triangle. So you have free flows of capital up here, also known as mobility, pegged exchange rate or a fixed exchange rate. Those mean the same thing. Fixed exchange rate. And then monetary autonomy or independence. Okay, so those mean the same thing, right? So the sides of the triangle then represent the possibilities for a country. You can have floating exchange rates and monetary autonomy. You can have a pegged exchange rate and capital mobility. Or you can have a pegged exchange rate and monetary autonomy, but no capital mobility. Let's think of some examples of each country. Who has floating exchange rates and monetary autonomy? Well, that'd be the U.S., right? We have our own currency, the US dollar. We have our own central bank to control it, the Federal Reserve. And we have floating exchange rates with every other major economic power. So we don't do fixed exchange rates. And that means we have capital mobility. So money can come in and out of the US economy with no restrictions. Now there are some particular restrictions on certain people. There's sanctions and stuff like that. But there's no general restrictions in terms of we're not going to let dollars come in or out of our economy. We allow people to invest in the economy. We allow Americans to invest outside of our economy. What country has a pegged exchange rate and capital mobility? Well, a lot of your dollarized economies would fit that bill. Okay, so your Panama, your Ecuador, your Middle Eastern countries. I'm not sure about the capital mobility there in every case, but I know some of those countries would fit the bill. Pegged exchange rates are not that common, though. Few countries who do them usually choose also to have monetary autonomy. So an example there would be something like China, pegging their exchange rate technically to the US dollar, having monetary autonomy, but denying capital mobility. So China will control the inflow and outflow of capital and investing. All right, let's conclude by just talking about briefly the pros and cons of fixed and flexible exchange rate regimes. Why might a country want flexible exchange rates? Well, you can do your external adjustments, and mainly that's going to be adjusting to a balance of payments surplus or deficit. You can finance a balance of payments deficit by printing money, supplying more of your currency to the world economy, and you have national policy autonomy. You can use monetary policy to stabilize or stimulate your economy. That'd be one big thing. The U.S. government will never give up its monetary policy autonomy, because the Federal Reserve is one of the most powerful financial institutions the world has ever seen. We would never give that up in order to have fixed exchange rates, which give us a little bit of advantage in terms of stability of foreign transactions, but not worth the cost. So arguments against flexible exchange rates. For small countries, this is going to be relevant. Hamper international trade and investment. So small countries might say, you know what, we'll give up monetary policy autonomy because we're such a small country and it doesn't matter that much in return for exchange rate stability, which will help attract foreign capital and help stabilize their relationships with their major trading partners. One thing to note though with fixed exchange rates is that there's no safeguards to prevent crises. So the monetary crises, Asian, Mexican, Argentina, those were fixed exchange rate regimes that were fixed until they weren't. So they suddenly switched back to a flexible exchange rate regime, devalued their currency, and caused a massive financial panic, flight of capital, and loss of a lot of assets for foreign investors. Okay, in conclusion, what are we looking for in the international monetary system? Well, we're looking for liquidity, the ability to provide money where it's needed. We're looking for adjustment when needed, especially in the face of balance of payment situations. Again, that's what we're going to look at in depth next week. And confidence. Can the system function smoothly without destabilizing one or more national economies? So we'll look at chapter 3 next week and focus more on this issue that has kind of been in the background for this unit, balance of payments. So I look forward to discussing that. See you soon.